Once you have finally reached the top of the steps, you'll be greeted by a square that's surrounded by 3 buildings. The 2 on the left and the right are part of the museum, while the middle is Palazzo Senatorio, which is the current office of the mayor. Originally, the square looked nothing like it does today. The hill consisted of Palazzo Senatorio and only one of the museum buildings overlooking the Rome Forum. It wasn't until 1538 that Michelangelo was commissioned to redesign the square. He was commissioned by none other than Pope Paul III. Both buildings were redesigned, and a third one was created. To finish the square, a statue of Marcus Aurelius was placed directly in its center. And one of the key design choices that's unfortunately no longer visible is that the square actually opens up to St. Peter's Basilica instead of the Forum. Once you've finally entered the museum and have gone through security, you'll be greeted by the original courtyard. This courtyard is important to the origin of the Capitolini collection, as it was the place where Pope Sixtus first donated a collection of bronze statues, which we will see later. Now this place houses various sculptures, and most notably, chunks of the colossal sculpture of Emperor Constantine, which was found in the Forum. One thing you may not know about this museum is that the setup has remained unchanged since 1734, which offers a unique glimpse into the early setup choice. After ascending to the first floor, you have entered a section of the museum that consists not just of sculptures and busts, but also of various art pieces. The first couple of rooms consist of floor-to-ceiling art with 3D-like elements, as well as some large sculptures. After moving past the first couple of rooms, the scenery changes drastically to a small collection of unique objects like pottery. These rooms were set up much different than the modern museums we see today, as they chose to display in cabinets. On the other end of the first floor, we enter the art gallery, which consists of the final pieces of the museum before it opened in 1734. These rooms consist of artwork of all shapes and sizes, most notably, I'm sorry if I butcher its name, the Burial and Glorification of Santa Petronilla, which is, in my opinion, the centerpiece of the art section. After coming back down to the ground floor, we enter into the new wing of the building, which was added in 2005 and was made to preserve the original Marcus Aurelius statue and the 3 original bronze statues. The setup of this room is quite odd, however, as it doesn't seem to follow much direction, except the room trying to highlight the Marcus Aurelius statue. Although the room doesn't fit the original building, the space offers an abundance of natural and man-made light, as well as offering up-close viewing of the original statues. As we move towards the remaining garden, we will pass by something very unique, a piece of the original temple that stood on Capitol Hill. As you can see in this recreation model, it was actually part of the temple's base. As we head over to the second building, you might be wondering, how do we get there, since the buildings are not connected above the surface? To answer that question, we will descend into a tunnel that links to the museum that was built in the 1930s, which now houses the museum's quote-unquote underground gallery. This gallery consists of ancient architecture that was discovered in various places around the city, simple things like columns and parts of ancient buildings. The second building, which houses some of the most famous pieces of art in the Capitolini collection. Unfortunately, during my visit, there was a Cartier event going on, which limited the light coming into the museum. So the ground floor of this building consists of very few rooms. However, the highlight of this area is actually a courtyard that houses Marforio, apologies for butchering the name, a massive statue that is the centerpiece of the courtyard, and in my opinion, the centerpiece of the floor. To the right of that, we have some Egyptian art and some very interesting looking monkeys, and a few other artworks. First floor to be the main event of the museum. Once again, connected by a hallway that's lined with statues and busts, famous sculptures in Rome, like the Dying Ghoul. Some of the following rooms are the Hall of Gladiators and the Cabinet of Venus. The busts would be illuminated by the natural light coming through the museum's massive windows. in the images and videos. Thank you for joining me on my short tour of the Capitolini Museum, and I hope that you will get the opportunity to see it for yourself. Thank you.